Nike calls this tech fleece, but let me show you what it really is. I'm Joe. I've been in manufacturing for over a decade, and I've overseen the production of millions of products all over the world. And on this show, we take apart pieces from your favorite brands, see if the quality is there, and I'll let you know if it's worth your hard-earned money. This is Industry Secrets. We're back, first episode of the new year. What do you got for me this week? Okay, Nike Tech Fleece. This is something that has been very popular over the years for Nike and something that's still very popular now. I think I've had many pairs of Tech Fleece over the years. This came out in like 2010s, I'm going to say, and has been a very popular style. This is their slim fit, tapered leg, regular length, 150 Canadian, made in Vietnam. As with most Tech Fleece styles, we have the really long zipper on the right side with a internal pocket. I think a lot of people like this because it feels technical having such a long pocket. The length which you terminate this is gonna be very important so you don't actually smash into the knees when someone's walking. You'll see the knees are over here where the knee darts are. If you had your phone here, if this was any lower and you're starting to smash into your knees, it's gonna be very uncomfortable for the user, but they've terminated at the right length here. This surrounding the zipper, usually you'll see a rubberized surround with what's called like AquaGuard zippers, like water resistant zippers. Here, it's purely to hide the stitching that would be around that holds the zipper. It gives this kind of technical effect that is part of the marketing of this Tech Fleece. We have two draw cords here with metal aglets. And then over here, we have two little bungees that are on the zipper with metal aglets as well. We can see in terms of the construction style, they have flat lock seams throughout, and they actually have knee darts here. Darts are when you actually take fabric and fold it over to change the direction. Actually, give me a piece of paper, just rip one from your notebook. Say this is a sheet of fabric here. What you're doing with a dart is you're actually folding it over like this to change the direction of the fabric. And if you do it multiple times, you're able to basically take fabric and change the direction of it. The reason why they put darts here is because this is a fairly thick and structured fabric. And because it's a tapered leg, if you didn't have this, when you sit down, you'd actually stretch out the fabric at the knee, which if you have a lot of like older Tech Fleece styles that don't have darts, all the knees are always stretched out because there's no elastane to recover it. So by putting that dart in, you're kind of taking the fabric and bringing it halfway to a seated position already so that there's less stress on that knee point. For the drawstring here, they've bar tacked it at the back so you don't have to worry about it coming out. Nothing overly obvious in terms of construction defects. And this is what the darts look out on the inside. You'll see this is the very large pocket bag. Even though it looks the same because it's that heathered, this is actually a single jersey, so it's lighter weight. Because if you were to use what's called the self fabric on both sides of the pocket bag, you're gonna have 3 layers of fabric on your right side, and it's gonna get really hot and warm on that one specific leg. You'll notice here, you're not getting the exact same color standard between the Tech Fleece and the single jersey, just because the differences in the weight of the yarn, the differences in how they're knit, the different dye lots. As brand designers, when you try to mix multiple materials, that's one thing you just have to keep in consideration, that even at the scale of Nike, it's gonna be hard. One thing you might notice with this fabric is that this doesn't look like a typical fleece. And that's because Tech Fleece is purely a marketing term. When this first came out, again, I'm assuming 2010s because that's when I first remember buying it, you really had denim, you had fleece, you had terry. How do you kind of create a new product category for pants and have people understand that it might be as warm as fleece, but it's not a sports fabric? And that's where they came up with obviously Tech Fleece. It's really there for the general public to understand what they're kind of getting into. Another thing you'll notice with this fabric is that it is what's called a heathered or marled texture. The dyes that work on cottons are not the same dyes that will work on polyesters. So whenever you're knitting fabric like this, more often than not, you're gonna have a marled yarn, which is gonna be these black, darker areas. And then you run it through traditional dyeing methods to dye the gray. They have a large gusset because you're separating the front seam from the back seam, and fabric is gonna have more stretch across the grain. So you're able to have pants that are a lot more comfortable. Then there's also the seam at the back of the leg. 2 reasons for that. Because they have a rectangular gusset, they need a way to terminate that gusset. Otherwise, you'd have to have this tapered towards the center seam. And then another reason is it's decorative because there's so much going on from the main brand mark, the big zipper, the knee darts. If you didn't have the seam here at the back of the leg, it would look very plain and boring, and it would look very unbalanced from a design aspect, even though it doesn't really achieve that much because you could taper the gusset, it brings a lot more visual interest to the back. Overall, construction's fairly decent. I would say this is very commercially acceptable. There's no very obvious defects here. Next up, I'm going to cut up this garment. I'm going to show you all the panel pieces you need to make this. But before we do, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on socials. Let's get into it. Let's take off the labels here. I'm going to pull the drawstring out first. By bar tacking it, what they're able to actually do is ensure that the drawstring stays in place. Cut it right here. One end. Let me just open up the entire waistband. So you'll see here with this waistband, they're going to attach the waistband using this overlock. It's then folded over. The elastic is placed in, and then they're double folding it over again to have a nice clean finish on the inside. So they took the additional step of serging it, folding it over, and then putting a chain stitch over here to fully hide that serge seam. You'll see here, this is the elastic, which we've done a series on how these are actually made. Be sure you check that out on our channel. If the elastic is too thin, if it's not wide enough, if it hasn't been cut to the right dimensions, that's going to affect the fit and the durability of this a lot. If a brand chooses to use a cheaper elastic in this, it's going to have very poor recovery, and over time, you'll have a waistband that gets very like sloppy and your pants fall off. There is your waistband with your elastic and eyelets. They've taken the additional steps to bar tack the pockets. Oh, interesting. It's Scuba Fabric. And what a Scuba Fabric is going to have two different surface fabrics, and it's going to be attached together with a material on the inside. Just interjecting here. So in this video, you're going to hear me calling this fabric a scuba knit. That's not to be confused with a neoprene, which you're using for wetsuits and diving. In the garment industry, the technical term for this fabric is a spacer knit. But if you say that to any garment factory, they're going to think you're talking about spacer mesh. So I'm using the colloquial term scuba knit. Anyways, back to the video. So you can see here we have the marled fabric on the outside and the inside, and then this white substrate between them. What you'll see here is I removed one of the knits going across, and you can see on the inside is the white polyester. It's knitted to hold the yarn on the outside and the inside of the fabric. It gives that little air pocket layer that's going to be so insulating. So you'll see the face fabric, which is going to be these smaller yarns, and then the interior structure of the scuba. And if I actually just pull here, you can see the scuba coming out along with the face fabric and face yarns. But that is the inside of a Nike Tech Fleece. There is your left leg. Let me open this up further. Now that you actually have this open, you can kind of see how a leg panel works. You have your front of leg over here. You can see it's doing that bending. You have your back rise here with a heat transfer label. And then you have your back leg panel here. Here is your ribbing. Let's see the stretch here. Do they have any spandex on this? Yep, we have a little bit of elastin in here. But that's what's gonna help give it its recovery. Here we have the left leg panel. You'll see here, this is the pocket bag. This is what's called a kind of like clean finish on the inside of the pocket. You're able to do a overlock seam on the outside, and then on the inside, you don't have any seams, which you wouldn't want in a pocket. Just out of curiosity, I can show you guys these darts and see what would happen if I actually open them up. This is the leg panel with the darts, without the darts. You'll see how much that curvature changes. So by increasing this, you can change the direction even further. They probably, when designing this product, picked a midpoint where you wouldn't feel the resistance of the fabric when wearing it straight. And when you bend your leg for sitting down, it still wasn't an issue. But there is the front left panel. We have a rubberized transfer there. Let's take a look at this pocket. A lot of people are doing these kind of zipper surrounds. They look very technical. It does not really do anything. You'll see here the zipper tape, which is this black surface, is still sewn in to the fabric. This is the backside of the zipper surround. So you can see the zipper itself is still sewn into the body of the fabric, but by placing this rubber on top, it creates the appearance that it is like bonded or another method of attaching, but it's still sewn in. This is just a decorative panel. See over here, we have a non-stretch woven fabric for the compartmentalization of the interior pocket. So for the weight of this, I'm actually going to send the team off to the lab to see what the weight is and bring it back. How much did it weigh?
310.
310, okay. Because it's a scuba and they have that little bit of insulating layer in between the little air pockets, you're gonna have it perform a lot warmer than you may a terry or a reciprocal jersey at 310. You can see if I hold it here, it actually still retains its shape, however I hold it, which creates that very voluminous aesthetic that you get with Tech Fleece. So here's all the panel pieces you need to make this Nike Tech Fleece. We have our waistband here with elastic inside, gusset, back yoke, ribbing for the cuff, right leg with rubberized surround zipper, non-woven interior division pocket within the larger pocket. And we have our left leg panel here with a heat transfer label for country of origin. I would say making a garment like this in Vietnam with very similar trims and components, you can probably get this made for around $11, $12. The fabric isn't anything special these days. There's so many suppliers that have kind of copied and ripped off the Scuba Fabric that it's something you can get readily available. Hey, Future Joe here. So after we filmed the video, I went home and started doing some thinking and actually grabbed a pair of my old Tech Fleece to show you guys. If I look at the thickness, it's around 1.1 to 1.15 millimeters in thickness. And if I look at the new Tech Fleece, 1.3 to 1.5. So it's around 15 to 20% thicker, which leads to a lot more voluminous of a product. It's gonna be more insulating. When we look at the older Tech Fleece under the microscope, it seems to be what's called a monofilament, and it's not as textured as the new Tech Fleece, which makes the new Tech Fleece a lot more bouncy and springier, which kind of is the new aesthetic these days. I actually even found an article from 2013 when Tech Fleece launched, and it was actually a foam core between the two face fabrics. People always talk about brands declining in quality over time. What Nike has done here with their Tech Fleece is they've applied new technologies, they've gone through different iterations. This is a clear example of a brand that's taking a technical approach to product development. So when we look at the fabric, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 here. They were kind of the first innovator of bringing a scuba-like fabric to the market. But from my personal experience, once the fabric starts getting stretched out, it won't recover as well. And you'll end up with this kind of situation. Once it gets stretched, there's no going back to where it was before because of the lack of elastane yarn, but that is a byproduct of them choosing to do this as a scuba. It's still a good option, barring the poor recovery. Workmanship here, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Other than a couple loose threads, there's really nothing functionally wrong in terms of the workmanship. For design here, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. You know, Nike was kind of the first to bring out a scuba fabric like this to the mass market. They've taken the time to perfect this product. They put bar tacks where bar tacks are needed to ensure it is a durable product. What they've done with the waistband for the double fold over is something that no consumer would ever notice, but they did that to ensure a better product. Lastly, we have value at 150 Canadian. I think this is very expensive for a product like this. You know, 10 years ago when this first came out, they might have been able to command a premium, but in today's market, I find it very hard to swallow a $150 pill for a pair of pants like this. You can check out the final score here. Don't forget to follow us on social media, like, comment, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what brands you want to see us do next. Till next time.